everyone. I had a few people in guilds ask me about my Templar healer, so I just wanted to throw together a quick video to kind of go over the basics. So I'll go over the race, skills, gear, CP setup, which will be changing soon, so I'll have to update it, but just all the basics. So you can start getting into some vet trials and vet dungeons. This is the build that I've run for all of my difficult content. She's my main. I've cleared pretty much every hard mode on her, and it's just been, it's worked really well for me, so hopefully it'll help you guys out. Alright, so first thing is going to be your race choices. So for me, there are two strong choices that I would recommend to anyone. Whenever I'm making a healer, whatever class, I always choose Argonian, and the reason is the passives that they give. Life Mender is going to increase your healing done by 6%. It's just really nice to have, but the main, even more so than that, is the Resourceful. So every time you drink a potion, you restore 4,000 health, magicka, and stamina. So, I mean, just for managing my resources, it's crazy. If you have your skills that use, stamina, and you're using a lot of magicka, your health is low, and then you just pop a potion, you're back up at full health. That's a tri-stat potion, but even if you're just using a magicka pot, it's going to give you so many resources back. I just find it to be really helpful. Second option, Breton. They have a lot of good things built in there. Increase magicka pool, which is going to increase your healing. So there's some benefits to both. So it just depends on what you like. I personally think that I think that the Argonians look the best in all of the skins. So that's, aside from the passives, that's just my personal preference. But those two make great healing options. Alright, so let's talk about some skills. Front bars is where you're going to spend the most of your time, so you have, right off the bat, 3 Resto Staff skills. I use Rapid Regeneration. You'll just want to coordinate with your other healer if you're in a trial setting to make sure that you're not both casting this. They could run Mutagen, that way you get a nice overlap of those two things, so you just want to make sure. But this is the one that I'm running. Illustrious Healing, this is going to be your heal over time. You would just place this down, wait for the duration, reapply when needed. Combat Prayer, this is going to be your #1 source of spammable heals for yourself and the group. This also grants Minor Berserk. The problem with this is it's only going to hit and proc that on 6 people at a time, so you're going to cast it a couple times. But if you're spamming that as your source of heal for your group, your uptime should be decent, so that shouldn't be a problem. Templar skill, Breath of Life. This is just going to be like your clutch, like the tank's really low, they need extra healing, they're in trouble, you're going to just pop out, hit that on them, or for yourself, but you're not going to cast this as a spammable because it is very expensive and it only hits 2 people, basically. So just use that in situations where you need a little something extra. And then we have the Power of the Light. This is going to use stamina, so when we get into like traits and the resources, we'll go over how to kind of balance that so you're not struggling for stamina at the time. But the reason that I use this is the Minor Breach. It's one of the very few places where you can get this, so you're going to cast this on bosses, on ads if you have the resources to do so, but mainly just the boss. And this one's nice because you get a passive every time you cast it. Minor Sorcery to you and your group, which is going to increase their spell damage by 10%. Most veteran trial groups are going to be kind of magicka oriented, so you're just going to want to make sure that if you are a Templar that you utilize this, it's going to just increase their spell damage by 10%. So it's just overall going to just boost the DPS of the group, which is nice. Next thing, you're going to want to make sure early on that you get into PvP, so Cyrodiil, Battlegrounds, whatever, so you can start leveling some of the skills in there because you're going to be using these quite a bit. On my front bar, I keep the reviving barrier. If their health is low, like if you're in a situation where a lot of people are down and you're scrambling to get reses, you might want to pop this, so the damage dealers can get some reses. It does a huge damage shield as well as, healing them over 15 seconds. So it's good to have. And the reason I slot this on my front bar over the Warhorn is the passive that you can get. So when you have it slotted, your Magicka recovery is increased for 10%. It's just, there's no reason to keep it on your back bar, so you want to make sure you get that on there for that Magicka recovery. There are some situations, like in Veteran Halls of Fabrication or Asylum Sanctorum, where you're going to be doing purges, so you can just, sacrifice for a couple fights that Power of the Light, and you can slot your efficient purge. So when you have both of these on your bar, you're going to be up to 20%. So that's quite a bit. Another skill you might want to pick up, it's very rare, but there are some situations where you're going to have to guard your tank. VSS, hard mode, fire boss, I had to level this because they would roll under the boss. They take a lot of damage under there to pull the adds under the boss, so I would slot them as to guard. It has to be double barred, so you would slot it on both bars. So yeah, that's just one that you would want to pick up as well. So let's put this back so I don't forget. Alright, and on your back bar, like I said, most veteran trial groups are going to be Magicka heavy, so you're going to be running Alley Drain. I think in most situations trial groups would ask you for this. It's nice because it does the major breach, so it does the it decreases their physical and spell resistance, but it's also really nice for sustain for your group. So every time they're damaging something that has Ellie Drain on it, they're going to be getting Magicka back. So that's why this one's so important. I think if you're not slotting it and using it, you'll have groups that, hey, my sustain's not as great, so just make sure it doesn't cost you anything to cast it, so just make sure you keep that on the bosses at all times. Extended Ritual, this is going to be another heal over time. That's what it looks like, so you would just cast that, 20 seconds. It lasts quite a while, so you would just throw that down. You would have those as heals over time. This is also nice because it does have a synergy purify, so that'll kind of work as an added purge. You can have that slotted, and if you're for any reason not able to get to them for the purge, if that's down and they hit it, they can get that purify synergy, and it'll just work as a purge for them, so that's a good skill to have. And then the next ones, these are all going to come from your Undaunted skill line, so doing your daily pledges, running your random normals, that's how you're going to level this skill line. You're going to grab the Overflowing Altar. You would just place this, it uses health, so just make sure that you're not on your wrong bar. I mean, there have been a couple times where I've goofed and I've thought I was hitting my combat prayer, and you can see it's in the same bar slot, and my health is getting low. So just make sure that, you're not spamming that by mistake. But this is nice because it's mostly efficient for the tanks because it scales off of their max health, but if they're really low, it gives them that synergy. It heals them for 65% of their max health. So you're going to want to make sure that you have that as an option for them if needed. In some fights, you might, you have another tank or the other healer's running it. You can slot. You can slot Elemental Blockade. This is going to proc your enchantment on your back bar, so if someone else is running it, you can kind of coordinate with them and get that as a placeholder. But I'm the one that runs it in my group, so I keep that slotted. Next is your Energy Orb. You'll see it has a little tether. That's how you know it's hitting you, it's hitting the group. So you would just push this through the group. It does a heal, as well as it gives them a synergy. This works for, your tanks. Your other healer can synergize it. There's no limit aside from the individual cooldown. So you push this through the group. If people need resources, they can synergize it, and it just scales off of whichever stat is higher. So a tank might have more stamina, and then when they synergize it, they'll get stamina back. And the last one is Bone Surge. So you can cast this. It's another stamina skill, so you're actually going to have 2 stamina skills. And you just would cast this, your group would synergize it, they would get the bone shield. If they're missing health, it'll replenish some of that health, so it's just nice to have it. And then your war horn, so that comes from the assault line. And this is going to be what you're going to prioritize as your ultimate 98% of the time, like I said, unless, the group is falling apart and everybody's dying and you're in trouble, which, if a tank goes down, it's likely that that could happen. But if everything's going smoothly, you would just coordinate with each other, your tanks and your healer. Everyone's going to be pretty much cycling through, because this is going to give your group the major force, which is going to increase the critical damage by 20%. So that's going to be pretty huge. So you just want to coordinate with your group, like, your tank would call my warhorn, or, so on and so forth, and just make sure that, it's not going to stack. So don't, if your tank casts it, make sure that you wait until that timer goes down and then you cast it. So those are the basic skills that I would run in most situations. Like I said, if you need to double bar it, you can kind of drop off. This is like my flex spot where I would put, some things like that. Another one that you would want to pick up, in some situations it's helpful to have, comes from the Fighters Guild, and you would slot this on your back bar. And this is nice because it gives minor protection, which is going to reduce their damage taken by 5%. So, if you're stacking for like a certain phase, taking a lot of damage, you can use this either as a visual as well as the reducing their damage taken. So there's some situations, where your raid lead might ask for you to have this. So just make sure that if that's the case, that you have it set up. Those are the major skills that I would say you would want to have. So that's pretty much it. Alright, so I'm going to go through the list of sets that you're going to want to carry on you. In a lot of situations, you're going to be coordinating with your other healer to make sure that you're not both wearing the same sets, because there's not really going to be any benefit for you to be wearing the same sets. So first big one most groups are going to ask for, at least one person is wearing Roaring Opportunist. Another is Jorvolds. We have Worm, Hollow Fang, and Spell Power Cure. These are going to be the major sets in most cases that you're going to be asked to wear, so we can kind of go through what each one of those does. So Worm Cult, when you're in a really Magicka heavy group, this is going to increase their Magicka recovery for you and everyone within the range by 145. It's nice to have. A lot of tanks have been wearing it lately as the weapons and jewelry, but there are some situations where you might have to wear it, so make sure you at least get a full set of the Worm Cult, because that's going to be really handy. Next, Spell Power Cure. This kind of replaced Olo a few patches back. It's just overall better, because you don't have to be limited to making sure everyone's hitting that Olo stack, so you can just proc it. When you do, your arms will glow a purple color, so you know that you've received the proc of that. So you'll want to make sure you have that one. Hollow Fang, this is nice. It'll do like a little blood ball, proc based on your healing, and when it explodes, it'll give resources back to your group, as well as increase their healing received. So it's just nice. Like I said, managing resources for the group is always huge, so Hollow is a really handy set to have for that. Jorvold is going to increase the buffs that you provide for the group, so your Combat Prayer, your Power of the Light, your Ellie Drain, your Warhorn, all of these timers are going to be increased. I'm wearing it now, so normally your Combat Prayer would be about, I think, 7 or 8 seconds. Mine's 10, 11 seconds. because of the Jorvold. So it just helps with managing your uptimes and making sure that you're optimizing those for the group. And then the last one is Roaring Opportunist. This one's kind of tricky because it only hits 6 people at a time. So the way you would proc this is you proc heavy attack and then a second heavy attack, just to make sure everyone in the group, if you're in a trial setting, is getting the bonus from that. I have an add-on here. It's RO timer. It's the one right above my health bar. And so you can see when I proc my heavy attack, there's a 22-second cooldown. My actual time is 16.8 seconds. That's the actual buff time that you're getting. I think the maximum that you can get is 16.8. And that scales off of your spell damage, I believe. Yeah, spell damage. So you can see your timer's counting down. It's about to expire. You can hit it again. You would do 2 full heavy attacks, though. It's not counting that second one on my timer because I'm not in a group of 12, so it's only counting for me. But if you're in a group, you would proc this multiple times just to make sure, you know, heavy attack, second heavy attack, proceed with what you're doing. When that timer comes up, you just reapply it. So that's basically how RO would look. Then we can go over the helms that you would want to carry. Major one is the Symphony of Blades. This is like huge for sustain for your group, so whenever you're healing an ally who's under 50%, their primary resource, whether it be Magicka or stamina, is increased over 6 seconds. It can proc every 18 seconds per target, so you can be proccing this on multiple people. It's beneficial for you, it's beneficial for the tanks or your damage dealers. It's just a nice set to have. If you're not as comfortable, if you're kind of like newer to healing, I would point you toward Ogden. This one's really nice. It'll proc like a little bat totem, and it's going to do quite a large heal. So, you know, 3,200 every 1 second over 10 seconds. So until you get to the point where you feel like you're really comfortable with your healing rotation, this can kind of be nice to supplement some of your heals. It's not something to overlook, so it's a nice one to have. There are a couple others. Troll King is a nice one to have in situations like VSS. If you're a tomb healer, this can increase, because when they go into the tomb, basically you're going to be under 50%. You're going to roll into your tomb, you're going to take a lot of damage. As you're healing them, their health recovery is going to be increased by almost 900. So over those few seconds that you're in the tomb, it's just really beneficial, especially if you get into the hard mode. You're going to have 2 tombs. You're going to really need to get those tombs healed up and get them out of tombs quickly, so you're going to, most cases, be using the Troll King. It's really nice for that. It's also nice for Kite Healer in Cloud Rest. You're out there doing, you know, sending shards. It's just nice. You can proc it on yourself, get your health recovery, so you're focusing on sending your shards. Another one, I keep it on me at all times. Sometimes they ask for it. Most of the time they don't. I would say the Symphony of Blades is going to be the most requested healer set, but this one, Sentinel, is nice as well. Also is a sustain set. Spawns a little spider. As long as they're standing in it, they're getting resources back, so it's good for stack fights. And then the last one, this is nice for dungeons, or if you're, for instance, the tank healer. This is not going to be great anymore. They changed it a few patches back. It used to proc on multiple people, but now it just procs on one person, the person with the lowest health. So if you're in a situation like Asylum Sanctorum, and you're the tank healer, you can proc this on them. It does a purge. It does have some really beneficial aspects to it, but it's kind of limited these days based on just proccing on one person. So if you're in a situation like a dungeon, it can be nice for something like that, or like I said, the tank healing. Alright, so let's talk about traits. We're going to go over your gear traits, your weapon traits, your jewelry traits, and this is what I would recommend for any of these sets. I find it to be really useful. First one, for your resto staff, you're going to spend most of your time on there. Powered is a great option. It's just going to increase your healing done. Back bar, your lightning staff, infused. You can use like a crusher enchant, which is going to, I mean, most of your tanks would be using it, but there are, where it falls off, so it's good for you to have it as well. It's going to increase the effectiveness as well as the cooldown. So infused back bar, powered front bar. There are some situations, like you can see I'm running Nirnhoned on my Jorvolds, and I only do this because it increases the RO time. But in most other situations, powered is what I would be using. It just works great for that. So powered, infused. For your gear, large pieces, head, chest, pants. I have divines because that's what this dropped in, but I would usually run infused on the large pieces and then divines on the small pieces. So head, chest, and pants infused. Shoulders, gloves, belt, and shoes, I would run divines. If you find that you don't need as much for your resources, you can run all divines. That's beneficial as well. I just find that for the infused, you can add a little bit more Magicka with just like a straight Magicka glyph, or you can do this tri-stat just to get a little bit, rounded for your dodge roll, your break free, and things like that. And then your traits for your jewelry. Everything that you should be getting as healer Magicka sets will probably be dropping with the arcane. That's fine in the meantime until you can save up some transmutes, but I would say like long term, try to get your stuff changed over to infused. It just adds quite a bit for your whatever enchant that you put on your jewelry. So I would run infused for all 3 pieces, and I've been using spell damage for all 3 pieces. The higher your spell damage, the more potent your heals are going to be. So that's why I do that. If you find that you're in a trial situation, you're struggling with sustain a little bit, you can do infused with Magicka recovery. And that's just one of those situations where you just kind of try things out and see what works best for you. I'm comfortable with my sustain at this point, so I run the spell damage. And you can do a little before and after. So this is the base number, 21,246. I'm going to proc my enchant, which is going to increase my damage, spell damage, so it goes up to 26,418. That's the effect that the spell damage is going to have on your healing numbers. So that's why I try to gear more towards that over the Magicka recovery on my glyphs. That is it for the video. Hopefully this was helpful to some of you. If there's anything you feel like I didn't cover, don't hesitate to reach out, leave me a comment, or if you're on the Discord, reach out to me on Discord and I will get back to you with anything that I might have missed. Again, thank you all, and I will see you next time.